New polls show that some younger voters, millennials, and members of Generation X favor socialism, and some Democrats have even branded themselves as Democratic Socialists, favoring such programs as universal health care and free college. I sat down with two younger voters, Nick Consolini, the president of UMass Republicans, and Jack Eccles, the president of UMass Democrats, to discuss the topic.
I think that when you break it down, they favor a lot of socialist programs, right? So if you take socialism as a whole and you say, do you prefer a command economy where you nationalize the oil industry and the auto industry? I bet a majority, if not all of those voters would say no. But I think that a lot of people have been taught that things like the Affordable Care Act mean socialism, which they don't. However, there have been a lot of politicians who branded themselves as Democratic Socialists, and they've gained quite a bit of popularity.
Bernie Sanders.
Right.
Everybody loves him, right?
Yeah. Well,
not everyone.
Yes. So he's a perfect example. There's a few others who have branded themselves, but that's not necessarily what our party has run on. That's certainly not how we won in 2018, right? Like if you look at any swing district, none of those people were self-proclaimed Democratic Socialists. So I think while some younger voters might identify with socialism, I think by and large we're winning with capitalist candidates.
Okay, so do you think they just don't quite understand exactly what it means?
Yes, and I think that there's some merit to some programs that might be considered socialist. For example, more public education would be considered moving towards a socialist model of education.
So like free college education.
Right. That would be moving towards socialism, but not necessarily, they aren't socialists in the sense that they prefer a socialist economy.
And is that something that you would favor?
I would favor moving towards college affordability that was accessible to everyone, yeah.
Okay. And you were mentioning that your party is a little bit more conservative than the other ones at UMass.
Yes. So on campus we have the college Democrats, we have the college Republicans, and then aside from that, we have Our Revolution, which is the group that was founded by Bernie Sanders, and we also have the International Socialist Organization. So if there's somebody who does identify as a socialist, chances are they're going to end up with one of those other two groups and not us. However, they're more than welcome to come to us and share their ideas. We're open to everyone.
And you're in the School of Management.
Yes.
As well. So obviously capitalism rings true to you as a major.
Certainly a capitalist economy, yeah.
Okay. So Nick, how about you? It can't be easy, first of all, to be the president of the College Republicans at UMass.
Fun time.
You have to have a thick skin. But, just hearing that most young people favor socialism, or at least think that they favor socialism, how does that make you feel?
I just think that's completely inaccurate. They're saying that as they're drinking their Starbucks coffee, ordering, their Ubers and everything. That wouldn't happen under a socialist economy. So I think people just don't understand what actually socialism is. It's the forced taking of income, the elimination of personal choice in the economy. And once you start talking to people about, do you actually want to, get rid of all private health insurance? People say no. So I think once you actually start breaking it down, like Jack was saying, actually dive deeper into like the specific programs, do you really want to eliminate choice? And overall, it's no.
I think some people, though, do want to eliminate private health insurance. I mean, we know that, right? And that seems attractive. If you look at countries like Sweden, which still favors the free market, has redistribution through taxes and certainly health care. Some people look at that as a utopia. Look at Sweden. Why can't we be more like Sweden? Is that something that you're hearing from people in your group?
Yes and no. I mean, a lot of people have been following what the presidential candidates have been proposing, and what's been thrown around a lot is, Medicare for all, right? And what does that mean? Is that complete elimination of all private health insurance? A lot of presidential candidates say no. What it is it's a public option, which is a very market-based solution because it forces private health insurers to compete with the government. But a single-payer health care platform is definitely a socialist solution. And we are hearing that within the party, and it'll be interesting to see what ends up in 2020 on the platform, whether it's a complete elimination of private health insurance or sort of a public option, which is what we wanted back in 2010.
Does it concern you how far to the left and how Democrats are leaning towards this democratic socialist, idea?
Not really, because I think that once you get out of like I said about 2018, right? I think that when you look at by and large, the people who did so well, they were not the far left candidates. I think that the people who are often covered, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders, are Democratic Socialists, but they didn't flip. They didn't bring us any victories that were really of consequence in taking back the House this year.
Although she's certainly making a lot of headlines, and
sure,
and
yeah.
she's really got a lot of support and a lot of attention as well. So Nick, how do you convince people, especially at UMass, that what you say is the right way to go? Because I think a lot of younger people say that socialism is compassionate and it cares for people, and Republicans are mean. How do you say that that's not true?
Right. It's definitely a challenge trying to fight the, capitalism is greedy, but, what's more greedy, the forcing of taking of income, eliminating of choice, isn't that more greedy than, a capitalist free market where, the economy is based off, your buying power is your vote. So you buy with your votes, and being able to get into the economy, have choice, I think that's what people want.
And when you look at countries like Venezuela, and that's a big example now of socialism, certainly failed socialism. There's an article from a man who contributes to U.S. News and World Report who wrote this a few years back, and he said, and he's from Venezuela, based on all the things that he's heard, rolling blackouts and food shortages, quote, "The force that is driving Venezuela into the ground is socialism." That obviously is a current, extreme, but real example, looking back, through history of what examples of socialism are. How do you, educate young voters, what the real world application of it could be?
I mean, if somebody was a self-proclaimed Democratic Socialist, big Bernie Sanders fan, I would make sure that we were on the same page, that they don't believe in nationalizing the oil industry, not diversifying the economy in any way, and then letting it fail and letting pretty much all of the profits flow to the state. I think that even the most far left candidate would agree with that concept, right? So there's different flavors of socialism, and I think that ultimately, while some of them might eliminate choice, some of them might also correct for a market failure.
How do you both sit side by side here? Because I think a lot of times adults, when we're having these conversations, it becomes, and you are adults, but old people like myself, it just becomes so heated and bitter. And of course, that's not the kind of discourse that you want to have. You want to be able to talk to each other, hash out ideas, agree to disagree, but at the end of the day, still be able to shake hands. How do you do that at UMass?
I think just realizing that everyone's human at the end of the day. People have, politics isn't some person's life. I might, we hold different political beliefs. Doesn't mean I can't be friends with you. Doesn't mean we can't go hang out, go grab food together. I think people just need to realize they have to separate politics from the person. Your politics isn't your personal identity. I think a lot of people, think that, and once you start criticizing, being a little pushback on people's ideas and their policies, they think it's an attack on themselves. Where I think you just have to separate your politics from yourself.
And do you feel the same way?
I do, yeah. And I also think it's stimulating to have a discussion with someone who you disagree with. We used to share an office until we were moved into different buildings. So we ended up talking a lot more than we would even with some of the more liberal organizations. And I think that we learned a lot from each other. So it was, a worthwhile discussion. And neither Nick nor I lie on either political extreme. So it's very easy for the two of us to talk about.